KeyHunters, the mysterious Moonstone. Chapter 1. There she goes again, Chloe whispered. Evan closed his joke book. There who goes again? He asked. Miss Cowley, Cleo said. Every day she disappears into the back of the library. Not one kid in school liked the new librarian. After all, Miss Hilliard left mysteriously at the end of last year. Miss Crowley swooped in to take the job. Although they both had the same brown eyes, Miss Hilliard's were warm and welcoming, while Miss Crowley's were dark and piercing. Miss Hilliard also had a sparkly purple book cart. She taught Evan how to find any fact in a moment and helped Cleo find books she liked. Miss Crowley only made them sit in their seats and stay quiet. She's probably shelving books, Evan said. Librarians love shelving books. Hey, do you know why an elephant uses his trunk as a bookmark? I don't care, Cleo said, peering down the aisle where Miss Crowley had vanished. So he always knows where he stopped reading, Evan said. Get it? An elephant trunk? Nose? Cleo ignored him and tightened her ponytail. I'm going to find out what she's up to. Bad idea, Evan said, tucking his joke book into his backpack. Why do you lose recess every day? Because I don't stay in my seat, Cleo said. But I had a good reason today. I'm sure, Evan said. Alia Fishbein took my pencil. I had to get a new one from the pencil cup. You didn't have one in your desk? Evan asked. The pencils in the pencil cup are sharper. Uh-huh. And they fit better in my hand. Uh-huh. And they have softer erasers. Cleo looked over her shoulder. I'm going, she said. You're going to get punished, Evan said. A lifetime without recess. Miss Crowley would be the one who gets punished, Cleo said. A teacher should never leave two kids alone. We could get hurt. With that, Cleo darted between the shelves. Evan knew following her would only lead to trouble, but he didn't want Cleo to think he was a chicken. They twisted through the maze of shelves. Every book he'd ever read smiled out at him like a friend. Here, in the library, he had tons of friends. Drat! A voice said. Which book is it? It came from the next aisle. Miss Crowley was tugging at books and shoving them back into place. Literature no longer used, she muttered. What sort of clue is that? All literature is used. Miss Crowley, Cleo said. Is everything all right? Miss Crowley spun to face them. An old-looking brass key hung around her neck. What do you want? We heard a noise back here, Evan said, and I suppose you've come to investigate like two little super sleuths, Miss Crowley said. We thought you might be in trouble, Cleo said. Trouble? Miss Crowley stood her full height and towered over the kids. Her black shoes had the pointiest toes and the highest heels Evan had ever seen. What sort of trouble might one find in a school library? A paper cut? Evan said. Go back to your seats, Miss Crowley said. But we were just, Cleo began. You were just going back to your seats, Miss Crowley said. Not another word from Mr. Junior Frank Hardy and Nancy Drew. Cleo and Evans headed back to their table. Awesome, Cleo whispered. She called me Nancy Drew. So what? Evan said. I read one of those books once. Nancy Drew sipped tea and ate something called fancy cakes. That's the old Nancy Drew, Cleo said. The new Nancy Drew has a hybrid car and a cell phone. Plus, she solves mysteries. Suddenly, Miss Crowley cried out and the kids heard a sliding sound. Cleo and Evan ran back to look, but Miss Crowley was gone. Chapter 2. I Told you there's something weird going on, Cleo said. She began tugging at the books. Help me look. Miss Crowley said literature no longer used, Evan said. Every second you waste thinking about something is a second you miss doing something, Cleo said. Then Evan remembered. He charged to the front of the library. A poster hung on the wall behind the desk. The heading read, Your Friend Dewey. On the left side stood a cartoon kid with big glasses. Down the right side was a list of different Dewey Decimal numbers. He knew the Dewey Decimal System was the way librarians organized their books. Librarians were careful that every book got numbered and shelved properly. Evan had seen the poster plenty of times before. Near the bottom was a section called Literature. Evan read that section closely until he found it. 804. Literature. Code no longer used. Code no longer used. Follow me, Evan said. He led Cleo to the last aisle of the library. On the top shelf sat an old, leather-bound book. The number 804 was printed on the book's spine. The title read, Literature, Elements and Genre from Antiquity to Modern Day. That book looks so boring, Cleo said. What does antiquity even mean? It means the olden days, he said. Modern day to the guy who wrote that book is probably antiquity to us, Cleo said. Just help me, he said. Cleo laced her fingers and boosted Evan up. Evan grabbed the highest shelf he could. His fingers barely reached the top edge of the book. He curled his fingers around it and pulled. The heavy book tipped forward. Evan thought it was going to crush him. He leaped out of the way, and they tumbled to the ground. What did he do that for? Cleo said, rubbing her shin through her pink tie-dye soccer socks. Evan didn't answer. He was too busy staring. Where a wall of dusty shelves used to be, a secret door slid open.